It's been about 10 days since Hurricane Helene tore across the United States Southeast. The storm killed at least 223 people, making it one of the deadliest storms of this century. The worst of the damage is in the Big Bend region of Florida, where the storm made landfall, and in western North Carolina, near Tennessee, where the storm battered mountain towns and caused catastrophic flooding that destroyed entire neighborhoods in and around the city of Asheville. In response, the Biden administration has deployed hundreds of active-duty National Guardsmen, along with Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, personnel. And instead of focusing all their energy on disaster response and recovery, as FEMA is meant to do, FEMA, local governments, and the Biden administration are currently busy fighting rumors and misinformation and conspiracy theories about FEMA's activities. In fact, there have been so many conspiracy theories about FEMA right now that FEMA has actually set up a response page, a rumor response page having to do with Hurricane Helene to try and curb the spread of falsehoods. Like, for instance, the completely made-up lie, which Trump himself has been pushing, that the Biden administration is spending federal disaster relief money on housing and other assistance for migrants who are in the country illegally, because migrants who are in the country are apparently the cause of all our ills, no matter what. FEMA provides life-saving rapid response and relief after disasters. It provides individual and public financial assistance to help communities recover after homes, belongings, and public infrastructure is damaged or lost. It also runs the National Flood Insurance Program, which provides one of the only comprehensive flood insurance in this country, especially as more and more insurers are getting out of the business. Unsurprisingly, Project 2025 has a different vision for the future of disaster preparedness. I'm telling you, this is a 922-page book. It touches on everything. Under this, the Heritage Foundation's blueprint for the next conservative administration, FEMA would be gutted. This book proposes on page 135 that, quote, privatizing the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, National Flood Insurance Program, reforming FEMA emergency spending to shift the majority of preparedness and response costs to states and localities instead of the federal government, eliminating most of the Department of Homeland Security's grant programs. It also recommends that Congress change the cost-sharing agreement so the federal government only covers 25% of the costs for small disasters, with the cost-sharing reaching a maximum of 75% for, quote, truly catastrophic disasters, end quote. Now, think about this for a second. This would leave poorer states and communities literally out to dry, unable to fully recover from disasters. Project 2025 also recommends raising the per capita threshold, which is a threshold used by FEMA to determine whether a disaster has caused enough damage to qualify for federal assistance. In addition to kneecapping FEMA's assistance programs, Project 2025 suggests eliminating the Small Business Association disaster loans completely. Look deeper into Project 2025. It becomes clear that, taken together, the mandate's policy proposals would wreak havoc on communities that are trying to get through major weather events and other disasters. If anything, Hurricane Helene highlighted areas that need to be bolstered. We need to continue to invest in climate-resilient infrastructure, invest more in it, not less. We need to continue to invest in understanding the ways in which our communities are vulnerable to these increasingly likely major disasters. Project 2025 risks undermining our ability to measure climate risks at all. Instead of understanding our threats to our communities, instead of preparing for these events, Project 2025 also aims to dismantle the agencies on which we rely for climate and weather-related information, like the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, the National Weather Service, the Environmental Protection Agency. Without trustworthy and robust climate data and regulatory oversight, it will be much harder to future-proof our communities against the rising threats of worsening natural disasters like flooding and storms and wildfire. Taken together, Project 2025's proposal to dismantle the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and the National Weather Service and the EPA and gutting FEMA will mean that we will know less about natural disasters and our vulnerabilities to them, and we will be less prepared for those disasters when they happen. Our communities will likely get less help to deal with the aftermath. Rather than taking a proactive approach to the threats of climate change, rather than facing the risks before us, rather than equipping ourselves with good information and readily helping impacted areas rebuild with resilience in mind, Project 2025's proposals would force our heads into the sand. It would put the most vulnerable communities at greater risk with less information, and it would leave us with less help on the other side of a catastrophe. Joining me now is one of the nation's leaders supporting climate change mitigation and adaptation, Washington Governor Jay Inslee. Governor, great to see you again. Thank you for being with us. I really wanted to talk to you about this because as a governor, first of all, you're involved in this stuff. And in your state, it's wildfires more than other things. But I think we've all learned that we are not fully equipped to mitigate natural disasters in this country. And Project 2025 would make us less so.
Well, no question about it. Project 2025 is a direct, clear, and present danger to the ability of states all across the United States to respond to protect our citizens. And I repeat, it's every state. It's hurricanes in North Carolina and Florida. It's floods in the Midwest. It's wildfires in California and Oregon and Washington. And we have floods here as well because of these mass precipitation events. So every state of the United States is at risk from this realistically, callously indifferent, ideologically driven desire, for reasons I can't understand, to kneecap our federal response. And the federal response is really important. Look, I share this with governors. When you go and talk to a family who are standing in the ashes of your home, you don't see them ideologically, you want to help them. And it is really amazing to me that Trump and his allies even think about reducing the support we have for these families.
One of the things that Project 2025 talks about is cost sharing. Now, it's not something maybe everybody understands, that you'll see that there's a hurricane coming or there's wildfires and the governor declares a state of emergency and the president declares a state of emergency. These are not just terms. They are actually triggers for FEMA deployment, for National Guard deployment, for money. If we don't agree on anything, we probably agree that government can do those things that we cannot do individually. And part of that is sharing the cost and the pressures of these natural disasters. Tell me why what Project 2025 is suggesting is dangerous, that the federal government sort of try to back out of its share of helping states out.
Well, look, Americans really have big hearts when people are in these disasters, as we do for the people in North Carolina today, where thousands are still without power and water. The Biden-Harris administration do everything they can. They've shipped 8 million, liters of water and 250,000 tarps. So they're doing everything they can. People feel for these families. I feel for these families. And this project would significantly reduce federal support for these families and these whole communities. And listen, it's not just Project 2025. I got to share this story with you, Ali, before we go a lot further in this conversation. Yeah. I had a situation to show you how callously indifferent Donald Trump is to the suffering of people who are the victims of climate change. In 2020, we had a whole town burned down, 2 towns, Malden and Pine City in southeast Washington. The whole towns burned. 80% of the homes were destroyed in these fires. And for months, we tried to get Donald Trump to do an emergency declaration so we could get help for these families. And we couldn't figure out why he was sitting there not giving us this help. Even the Republican congresswoman from the area was banging on him to help us out. Turned out, he was refusing to help us because he was mad at a blue state governor. Yep. His sense of entitlement prevented him from helping people in my state. And we had to wait till Biden took the oath of office to get that done. When you see a person who is so self-interested and juvenile and irresponsible, it shows how dangerous we are, because these threats are going to continue to accumulate with climate change. And people are going to have less insurance going forward, too. Yep. Because insurance rates are going up because of these climate disasters. So this man is a clear and present danger going forward, I'll tell you that.
And by the way, this insurance issue is really very serious. There are insurance companies that have either gone bankrupt or are pulling out of states. And sometimes that means that until we've solved this economically, government's going to need to be involved. These are, whether you're conservative or liberal, these are views of what government should be involved in. The other thing Project 2025 talks about is pulling back on NOAA and the National Weather Service. It's this idea that if you don't have the data, it's not there. If we don't test, we don't have COVID, right? So, but this is really serious, because the people,
when Donald Trump drew You remember when Donald Trump took the crayon?
Yes.
And he showed where he was going to make the hurricane go. And I just read Marjorie Taylor Greene said that they, meaning us, directed this hurricane to red districts in North Carolina. You got to understand the danger of a person who is willfully ignorant about the science of climate change. If you deny there's a fire in your community, which he's doing, he basically is denying the existence of a fire. He is saying that climate change is a hoax. He continues to say that wind turbines cause cancer. In fact, they're just causing jobs all across the United States. If you take that position, that is a danger in and itself. And as the evidence piles up, and as this problem accelerates, his danger becomes more and more apparent and even more dangerous to Americans. We're experiencing this and the inability to get insurance. I talked to a friend of mine the other day. He said, well, I thought I was going to be okay down in the panhandle of Florida because we were 100 miles away from the eye of the hurricane. He was 100 miles away and ended up getting chased to the second story because of 3 or 4 feet of water in his living room. When you have that situation to Americans, to allow a man to get to the White House who has already demonstrated a callous indifference to the suffering of Americans, we got a problem. He needs to stay out of there.
Governor, good to see you as always. Thank you for joining us. Real early for you, Governor Jay Inslee of Washington.